All right, today we're going to break down one of the most powerful structures in teaching. It's called the gradual release of responsibility, but you probably know it as I do, we do, you do. At its core, this whole thing is about mastering the seamless handoff of learning from the teacher to the student. You've seen this happen, right? I mean, it's a classic classroom moment. You explain a new concept, you lay out the task, and then just crickets. The student is just completely stuck, staring at that blank page. So what is actually going on inside their head at that moment? Well, it turns out there's a name for this. It's all about cognitive load. See, when a student is trying to juggle brand new information, plus the instructions for the task, and figure out how to actually do the work all at the same time, their working memory just gets swamped. And when that happens, the system crashes. It's like trying to run too many programs on an old computer. Learning just grinds to a complete halt. So how do we prevent that overload? How do we stop our students from freezing up? Well, thankfully, there's this really elegant framework that's designed to do exactly that, and it's called the Gradual Release of Responsibility. The idea here is actually beautiful in its simplicity. Just think of that cognitive load, all that heavy mental work, as a baton in a relay race. At the very beginning, it's the teacher who's holding the baton. They're doing all the heavy lifting. Then, very carefully, step by step, they pass it off to the students until eventually the students are running with it, all on their own. So how does this handoff actually play out in the real world? Let's break down the 3 distinct phases of this whole model, step by step. But wait, before we even jump into phase 1, there's this crucial step 0. You've got to show them the finish line. Students absolutely need to know what success looks like from the very beginning. Let them see a great example, what a good one looks like. This frames the entire task and gives them a really clear target to aim for. And here it is, the core framework itself. I mean, look at that clean, logical progression. It starts with I do, where the teacher is modeling everything. Then it shifts to we do, which is all about guided practice. And it all leads up to you do, where the student finally gets to fly solo. So let's dive into phase 1, I do. At this stage, you have to remember, the teacher is carrying the full cognitive weight. They are holding that baton, and they are running that first leg of the race completely by themselves. Now, this phase is so much more than just a simple demo. The real magic happens when the teacher narrates their thought process out loud, what we call the think aloud. They have to explain the why behind every single move, point out the common mistakes people make, and constantly check for understanding. And here is the absolute key. The student's only job is to watch and absorb. They're not frantically trying to copy everything down. Okay, now we're moving into the second phase, we do. This is it. This is the moment the handoff actually begins. It's this collaborative effort where that responsibility starts to shift from the teacher over to the students. And I really want to land this point. The source material is crystal clear on this. This is the most critical and honestly the most frequently botched part of the entire framework. If you can nail this stage, you make the whole thing work. It's that important. So, what does a great we do phase actually look like? Well, it's all about providing the right support structures, scaffolds. Think about things like giving them a partially completed example to finish, or a simple checklist to follow, or even just some sentence starters to get the ball rolling. The goal here is to let them practice with a safety net, building up their confidence piece by piece. All right, so once the students are really showing that they're confident and competent in that we do phase, it's finally time for the last leg of the race, you do. This is where the handoff is complete. The student has the baton and they are ready to run on their own. But how do you know they're really ready? Is it just a gut feeling? Well, there's actually a bit of a magic number. You're looking for about an 80% success rate during that guided practice time. If they can get it right about 80% of the time with your support, that's a really strong signal that they're prepared to go solo. And beyond that 80% number, there are other signs you can look for. Like, can the student actually explain the process back to you? Are they asking fewer and fewer questions? When you start seeing these things, that's a green light. It's time for independent practice. So this whole process, it feels really intuitive, right? It just kind of makes sense. But I was curious about the science underneath it all. Why is this structure so effective from a cognitive point of view? Well, it turns out it aligns perfectly with how our brains are wired to learn. That I do phase, it clears out all the clutter from working memory, so the student isn't trying to decode instructions while also learning a brand new skill. Then we do lets them practice in a focused way without that overload, building the new connections in their brain. And finally, you do forces them to retrieve that whole process from scratch. And that active retrieval is what actually cements learning for the long term. You can just see that perfect cognitive journey right there.
Now, as powerful as this model is, it's also surprisingly easy to get it wrong. So let's take a look at some of the most common mistakes, or what some people call unhealthy mutations, that can totally sabotage the process.
The absolute biggest trap is right in that critical "we do" phase. In what you might call a false "we do," the teacher just keeps doing the thinking for the student. But in a true "we do," the student is the one supplying the thinking, and the teacher's job is just to prompt and guide and shape their responses. It's a subtle difference on paper, but in practice, it's absolutely massive.
And there are a couple of other common errors. First, moving to independent practice way too early. You have to remember that 80% rule. And second, never actually taking away the supports. Scaffolding is like training wheels on a bike. The whole point is that eventually they have to come off. Okay, so after breaking all of this down, what's the one big thing to take away from all this? For me, it all comes down to a single idea: mastering that handoff. When you get right down to it, I do, we do, you do is so much more than a simple checklist. It's a deliberate, really thoughtful journey. It is the art of managing cognitive load to guide a student from a place of complete dependence to one of confident independence. So I'll just leave you with this final question to think about. In your own work, whether you're a teacher, a coach, a manager, where is your very next opportunity to perfect that gradual, supportive handoff of responsibility?